So in this video, I want to talk about A-Train and A-Train's redemption arc. Now, A-Train is one of the more interesting characters in The Boys in the sense where he has a very well-developed story. And honestly, his redemption arc has been one of the most exciting things to watch this entire season. Like, watching this guy where he's come from has really been, nothing short of an amazing piece of writing. So, I made a last video about The Boys and I was, trashing season 4's finale. But honestly, A-Train has been one of the best things about this season. Let's kick this off and feel free to let me know what your opinion on A-Train. I personally really like him this season, and I mean overall I've liked his character. Even when he was a bad guy, he was still an interesting character to watch. So let's start off with our introduction. So A-Train is born Reginald Franklin. He comes from very humble beginnings, from a very impoverished neighborhood with him and his brother. I believe his mom passed, so basically it's been him and his brother growing up. Now, I don't remember the exact situation, but pretty much A-Train was given Compound V, which is a substance that allows kids or humans, regular humans, to develop superpowers. A-Train develops super speed, and basically through his use of super speed, he works his way up, trains, goes to a superhero college, which is Godolphin College, and then eventually makes his way into the 7, which is the highest of highs a superhero can go. Which is why this first section of A-Train's character, I want to call it higher than high. So A-Train, after working his way into the 7, is honestly, as far as he's concerned, like unstoppable. And that is reflected in that first episode. The first moment we're introduced to A-Train in the entire series, the first thing he does is blast through Huey's girlfriend. I mean, honestly, that was such like a jaw-dropping moment. I've never witnessed any piece of work, like, superhero show where something like that happens, and that kind of set the pace for The Boys. A-Train, basically explodes through Huey's girlfriend through use of his super speed, and in the most comedic way ever, he is literally like, listen, I can't stop, I have to go. Like, there's something more important than the guy's girlfriend who he just killed. He straight up murders her and just speeds off. And this kind of sets the tone for the kind of person that A-Train is in this season. A-Train feels like he is so above everything and he's so much better than everyone, to the point where he doesn't even take the time to address his actions. I mean, honestly, you would think that someone would be much more remorseful after doing something like that. But A-Train is pretty much, he's okay. And that is one of the actions that actually compelled our main character, Huey, to go on his path. Because pretty much A-Train killed his girlfriend and he went about his life pretty casually. And it's crazy to me because it isn't that A-Train is particularly evil or anything. It's more so he just doesn't see it as a big action. And this is something that is very in line with his character currently. He's so high up there, so high in his head, that he can't see his actions as, bad or good. He's just above everybody. Very similar to Homelander, but not in as cruelly as Homelander would be, but in such a non-caring way. So some other things I want to highlight in A-Train's higher than high moments is even his apology to Huey. A couple days after Huey's girlfriend is brutally murdered by A-Train, Vought basically wants A-Train to have a meet and greet, pretty much just pay off Huey and have a little PR thing. But just the fact that A-Train's apology was just so lacking of any form of empathy or care. And again, it's so funny because it's not because he's some sociopathic murderer, but it's genuinely because he just feels like his time is better, served elsewhere. He's so high of his success, of his status, that he genuinely can't even process, he doesn't even remember her name. That is how crazy this guy is. This guy is so high off his own high that he doesn't even remember the name of someone he just murdered. And this sets him up so high that the only place for him to go was down. There was nowhere else for A-Train to go but down, because he was so high up his ass. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. In season 1 of The Boys, we get to realize that A-Train is under a lot of pressure, not only because he is the first, black guy in the 7, but also because he has to maintain his speed. More or less, for the most part, the 7 doesn't really care about, race and identity politics. What it does care about is results and optics. So A-Train is constantly under pressure to be the fastest guy. This causes him to use, performance enhancing drugs, i.e. Compound V. And I love how they use that kind of metaphoric example to compare it to, like, athletes, because pretty much A-Train, because of his success, he was able to take his family out of, whatever situation, and, get all these lavish brand deals, all this success. So now he's under the same pressure, even as a superhero, to maintain that lifestyle. So he has to be constantly, taking Compound V to keep up this persona. And it's a lot of pressure. That pressure ultimately leads up to his downfall. And even in his relationships with other people, for instance, his girlfriend Popclaw, A-Train has a girlfriend, but because she's not on the same status level as him, he doesn't even acknowledge her. They've been, hinting around for a while. Eventually he was saying that he'd go public with her, but he cares so much about his status to the point where, he'd sell out his main girlfriend because, she's not an asset to him. She doesn't look good in his image. And that really shows that, like, this guy he's just so lost. He's just so lost in the fame, in the success, in everything. And eventually Popclaw puts him in a little pickle because Popclaw is in cahoots with the boys. And pretty much Popclaw tells the boys that A-Train has been running Compound V for Homelander. Now, in a twist of events, A-Train murders Popclaw because I guess she pretty much betrayed him and Homelander. And in a really sick, twisted way, when A-Train finds out that Huey is behind, blackmailing Popclaw, and that Huey has been, I guess, upset that he murdered his girlfriend, in such a shocking way, A-Train is actually upset. A-Train is actually pissed. He's like, yo, I murdered your girlfriend on accident, but you've been trying to get revenge on me. Like, you made me kill Popclaw. And it's so crazy to me that A-Train would find it in his own self to blame the boys or blame Huey for the murdering of Popclaw, even though A-Train literally killed Popclaw himself. And it really just kind of shows me that, like, this guy is such an egomaniac that he's so far up in his own ass that he can't even take responsibility for his own actions. Like, the upset, the anger in his face when he addresses Huey, like, how could you make me do this? And it's just like, get a reality check, bro. like wake up. This whole chain of events started because of you. And then now this is where Kimiko breaks his leg and thus begins his slow descent, his slow downfall, because honestly the boys have been warming us up to A-Train's downfall from season 1. After his leg is broken, A-Train is under a tremendous amount of pressure because he has a race coming up. With the race coming up, he's trying to maintain his spot as the fastest, and he has a broken leg. The doctors tell him to take it easy, but obviously he doesn't want to take it easy because he needs to win this race. Back to old habits, A-Train takes Compound V again to accelerate his healing and also make sure that he wins the race. He does win the race, but the constant taking of the Compound V now puts him in a spot where, he's having heart palpitations, he's on the brink of, whatever. And then in our season finale of season 1, A-Train's facing off against Starlight and Huey, and he just loses it. The stress from taking the Compound V affects his heart and he has a heart attack. And our protagonist being Huey, instead of leaving A-Train to die or killing him in the moment, he decides to help him. So after A-Train has his heart attack, Starlight brings him in and he's safe. Until season 2, where things get even worse. So if season 1 was A-Train being higher than high, season 2 was A-Train's crash and burn. So because of A-Train's constant use of Compound V, it's finally taken a drastic toll, and it's a case where every time he uses his powers, he runs the risk of dying. So pretty much he's a speedster that can't really use his speed. So there's this constant threat of any time that he's running fast that something might happen. And this now puts him in a spot where he's no longer valuable to the 7. The thing is with Homelander doesn't see race, he doesn't see gender, he just cares about, powers, and like, he just cares about, like, how good you are of an asset. And then A-Train not being the fastest guy anymore makes him not an asset to the 7. And then we end up with Stormfront, who is actually racist, who doesn't want A-Train in the 7 at all, and she's so happy that he's getting kicked out. So A-Train, having fought his entire life to make it into the 7, to achieve all these things, has everything taken away from him and is on the lowest of lows. And the only other person that can relate to him is someone who's going through the exact same thing, the Deep. And it's so ironic that both A-Train and the Deep pretty much lost everything through season 1 through 4. but they had very opposing character arcs. Maybe I'll do a video about the Deep, but for right now we're talking about A-Train. So yeah, his best buddy Deep, hits him up and be like, hey, I just joined a cult, would you like to, hop on? And A-Train pretty much, lowest of lows, decides to try the cult because guess what? He has nowhere else to go. In a scene where he's speaking with the leader of the Church of the Collective, he is like, listen, I've seen the videos, I don't want to be here. And the guy says to him, listen, like, you're in debt, you have a heart problem, and you can't run. Like, do you think you have the luxury of leaving here? And that really just kind of shows you that this guy does not, like, A-Train is no longer the big hotshot. He's no longer the head honcho. He's just a regular guy that pretty much nobody cares about. Like, without your talent, without your fame, you're just a nobody like everybody else. And this leads A-Train to actually decide to stay in a cult and try and work his way back into the 7. Another scene that was really remarkable for me in season 2 was when Starlight lead Compound V and A-Train was like, yo, you have no idea what you're doing. And she's like, what you mean? And then he says, you don't mess with the money. And she's like, there's more important things than money. And he says, that's what people with the money always say. And that was just something that really stuck out to me because, as I said before, like, you can tell that A-Train is not just some pointless villain that's just evil, because honestly, he's just an asshole who got too greedy because he got famous. And that is something that's quite relatable. That could happen to any one of us. Anybody that's thrusted into fame because of, maybe like talent as like a sports player or maybe a celebrity. It's easy for your ego to get to your head and you forget your roots and you become too large than life. So it really was like a peer into that scope to see like, what it's like for like, a man to thrust it into such a high position and, not know how to act. And I love the fact that like they humble him so much that he eventually remembers how to act. So eventually, A-Train works his way back into the 7 by getting in a Dirt and Stormfront, helping the boys, which even though that was a good thing, it was still for an ulterior motive. So it wasn't genuinely like a good deed. He was helping them, but it's because he wanted to get back into the 7. Yeah, Stormfront was racist, but in the same breath, it wasn't just being good for being good's sake. He had his ulterior motive. Season 3 now is where we get a very much convoluted picture of A-Train. So season 3 is where A-Train is really trying, but he keeps messing up. And I'm gonna give a perfect example. So season 3, we're introduced to a new character called Supersonic. Now Supersonic is basically Starlight's ex-boyfriend, and pretty much Starlight explains to him the whole situation with Vought, and he's down to help. Now, what stuck out to me in season 3 is that Homelander is still being a tyrant, an absolute tyrant to A-Train, because A-Train still doesn't have powers, and at this point, he's sick of him. Like, Homelander does not respect useless superheroes. That was made evident when he basically murdered another superhero that was trying to join the 7, who was basically he was blind, like a Daredevil kind of spin-off. Like he just straight up murdered that guy because he's like, listen, I don't want like a cripple in the 7. I hope that's not offensive to say. Like, I don't mean that offensively, guys. But yeah, like he just straight up murdered that guy, and that just kind of shows you Homelander. Like, he wants fully super able people that are, the top tier on his team. And because A-Train does not have his, super speed, he pretty much hates him. And season 1, we see A-Train and Deep. Season 3, we see A-Train and Deep have one of the most pathetic fights I've seen in The Boys, where honestly, it was just so sad to watch. Like, they're both like so, I couldn't even tell that they're superheroes. Like, it just looked so like, it didn't even look good like a regular fist fight. And then in that moment, Homelander walks past A-Train and helps the Deep up. The Deep. And even A-Train says it himself. He's just like, the Deep? Like, how are you choosing the Deep over me? And even then, the two characters who had fallen to their lowest of lows, Homelander still, prefers Deep. Because I guess what? Deep still has his powers. A-Train doesn't. So A-Train here is just here like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on? Like, this sucks. Like, how much worse can it get? And Supersonic thinking that, okay, maybe this guy who's not respected by Homelander, who's been mistreated by Homelander this whole time, would want to join our cause of actually trying to, make things right. And you know what A-Train does? He sells him out. He basically gets him brutally murdered in that first episode. And I was so annoyed because I'm just like, yo, A-Train, I thought you were changing. I thought you'd want to help the guys. I thought you want to do the right thing. But you can still see where A-Train is trying to hold on to the lifestyle that he created. He's still trying to be that guy. And that's what I like with his character. It's like, it's not a sudden change. It's a gradual growth over the entire course of the series. He didn't change in one season. He didn't change in 2 seasons. He's changed. He's been going through metamorphosis the entire season. And that is some real character growth. That is enough time for me to actually think that, okay, this guy is trying to change even though he's making mistakes. And this season really puts it into a weird spot because Homelander is now officially getting rid of this guy. They have him basically parading around in an African suit because they're trying to do something with him. I think they're making this movie like A-Train goes back to Africa, and then it's just, you know, who is A-Train without the speed and the fame, without the, you know, the powers? And we see where he tries to reconnect with his brother again. You know, he tries to, you know, connect back to his family. His brother explains to him that there's a superhero called Blue Hawk who's constantly harassing the community. So A-Train, trying to do something good, says, you know what, I'll have Vought talk to him. Let's see if we can get like something going on. So, you know, Blue Hawk goes down there and everything goes like far left. Blue Hawk is basically annoyed that they're like, yo, why are you attacking people? And he's basically saying, listen, you know, there's more violence in these communities, etc. And then in the craziest of tangent, he just starts like, you know, attacking people, just like straight up, like almost killing people. And then he ends up paralyzing A-Train's brother. A-Train now super upset because he's trying to do something right, and then it backfires on him. Goes to Ashley and is like, Ashley, like, we need justice from this Blue Hawk dude. And this is where, you know, stuff really starts. This is where I feel like A-Train really, I think ultimately having his brother get paralyzed, I think that is where A-Train really gets his reality check, because Ashley gives it to him. Ashley rips out her hair. Yo, listen, Ashley is a top tier actor. Like, the actor that plays Ashley, I love her. Like, I didn't know, I think Ashley is that one character in the show who's, you know, for lack of a better word, like useless, or I'm not say useless. She doesn't have powers, but like, listen, she's one of the best characters to watch on that show. Ashley rips out her hair and she's like, listen, I've been covering up for you, like straight up. Like, you've murdered like 3-4 people, and after you're murdering people, like, you go to the club, you hang out with your friends, you know, you go to your girlfriend, have your girlfriend sucking on your toes. I mean, no problem with that. Whoever likes toe sucking, that's all good with you. But yeah, like, you do all that crap, and then you have the audacity to come to me and complain about justice. What about all the people that you killed? What about all the people that you hurt? And then we can see the look on his face, the expression when he realizes that, yo, you've been doing this stuff to regular people the whole time. Now that when someone does it to you, you're complaining about justice, but you were always this person that was attacking everybody else, that was making everybody else live a living hell. So how dare you come and like expecting justice when you've been doing this the whole time? And I think that now sets off his actual start to really realizing that he's an asshole. Because guess what? He goes to Herogasm and sees Huey. And Huey right now is hopped up on Compound V. So Huey is ready to go. Huey's ready to destroy this guy. And Huey goes up to him and says, listen, you owe me an apology. And I love this scene so much because you know what's crazy about it? A-Train, in a moment of being super low, apologizes to Huey. But I like the fact that he didn't know he was on Compound V. He didn't apologize thinking that, okay, this guy is going to fight me or whatever. He apologized to Huey thinking Huey was a regular guy that couldn't do him anything. And he apologized because for once he was so low that he could relate to somebody that, you know, is not a superhero anymore. He could relate to like a normal person. He was no longer on this ultimate high. He was finally on a low where he could understand what he did and feel his pain, and he genuinely looked remorseful. And it's so crazy because Huey was so visually upset at the fact that, listen, I wanted to hit this guy. I wanted to like destroy this guy. But because this guy looks remorseful, it's almost like he can't even get to, like, he went into that wanting to fight fully, and that was not the answer that he was expecting. I mean, he still hit him in the face. And, you know, congrats to you for that, Huey. Congrats to you for that. But like, just the fact that like sometimes it shows, because Huey was not expecting A-Train to change. And that scene right there shows that, people are capable of change. Unfortunately, right after he goes on ahead and ends up murdering Blue Hawk brutally, it's pretty much taking Blue Hawk, running at super fast speeds, running across the pavement. And then even in that scene, I think A-Train fully went to, have whatever with Blue Hawk, thinking that, listen, I might die as well. I think he did that knowing that at the end of the day, he might not live either, right? After murdering Blue Hawk, in an ironic twist of events, he ends up getting Blue Hawk's heart, and thus, pretty much regaining back his powers. But here's what happens now. He goes to his brother to kind of beg for forgiveness, because again, this season I can see where he's really struggling with the monster that he was, and I guess forgiveness was very important to him. So he goes to his brother begging for forgiveness. But his brother kind of realizes that in some way, he was a part of Blue Hawk's death. His brother being super upset because, listen, I didn't want this guy to just die. I wanted this guy to go to jail. I wanted this guy to be on the news. I wanted my kids to see that this guy served justice. You killing him basically makes him into a martyr, or even prevents his reputation from being tarnished. And that upsets Nate, A-Train's brother, so much. A-Train's brother is so upset because even A-Train saying, yo, I murdered him for you, it was not for him. You did it for yourself. So even in his struggle of trying to become, a better person, he's still behaving selfishly, making selfish actions. Finally, Nate just says, listen, I don't want you around. I don't want you near. Every time you try and do something, you always make it worse. You're just a mess up. And, this, now we can say where A-Train, this is probably the final thing that A-Train does in season 3. And season 4, we can actually see that A-Train is coming to terms and saying, okay, I just want to be a good guy now. From basically the entirety of season 4, A-Train has been a total asset to the boys. A-Train has saved Huey from basically dying numerous. I think he has 2 saves in season 4. Not to mention the fact that A-Train got Compound V for Huey, thinking that Huey would not forgive him. That is an action that I really think is super important to know, because he knew that Huey would probably take the Compound V and say, okay, I don't care, I still hate you. But he did it because he thought it was the right thing to do. And then Huey ultimately forgiving A-Train, I think that really means a lot, because again, from season 1, A-Train is a person that made Huey pretty much join the boys, that kicked off a lot of the events for the series. And to have this person finally forgive you, that, just means a lot. Even A-Train trying to reconnect with his family and telling, his nephews about his times as a superhero, and having his brother come and tell him that, listen, all those were fake. That was just crazy. Season 4 A-Train is a totally different A-Train from season 1. Season 4 A-Train is someone that is taking risks that genuinely don't benefit him. He's actually trying to take down Vought, helping the boys get Compound V, saving Huey, getting dirt, giving the boys information on Homelander and different stuff. All these things were constantly putting his life in danger. But listen, he wasn't doing it for himself. And that is true character growth. This guy's come such a far way from someone that, was only looking out for his interests and only saw things from his side, to someone that was constantly putting his life and his family's life in danger for the greater good. Even in the scene where A-Train comes and saves MM, that was such a dangerous moment for him. Not to mention the fact that the look on his face when, that kid saw him and actually felt proud to see a superhero. And in that moment when he finally said, saving MM was the first time in his life where he did something and, he didn't hate himself. I love that scene. I love the fact that A-Train has finally, come out of this, selfish state, this, I only care about myself state, to someone that is now risking his life, someone that has gone as far as to fight Black Noir and the Deep in an attempt to help the boys. And what was crazy about that fight is A-Train versus the Deep in season 4 was such a drastic difference from A-Train versus the Deep in season 3. A-Train with his powers going back and forth, and Deep actually displaying some feats of strength. You can see where these guys are actually back up, but back up in different ways. A-Train has been built up now as someone that is fighting to do the right thing, and the Deep I guess he built down to some evil narcissistic dude that, you know, after all the people making fun of him and whatever, he's now become like a full psychopath. But I just want to say, yo, the character growth for A-Train has been top tier. It's been great to watch, and honestly, it's been some great piece of cinema. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about A-Train's character growth. If there's anything you think I left off or anything you want to discuss, we can talk about it in the comments. All I ask is for you guys to be respectful. If you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithms, if you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm says you're gonna love this video right here.